Thank you for joining us. We continue the discussion about open access, and so what I'd like to do is we'll stick to about 10 to 12 minutes per talk, and then we'll open it up for a couple of minutes after that. We'll start with Dr. Ola El Zein, who is the head of the Saab Medical Library at the American University of Beirut.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Yousif and Asfour, for inviting me to be in this panel with distinguished speakers and this interesting conference. So I'll be talking maybe a shift about the role of libraries and librarians, how they can be key enablers for open science and open society. Okay. So honestly, I don't come from a library background as education. I do have a PhD in biology and physiology, and I was a faculty member, but I still decided to accept the position of the director of medical library because I felt I can make use of this position with my scientific background to be able to disseminate information more openly and to contribute to the achievement of the SDGs. So why we're talking about open science and why it's interesting, I just wanted to highlight two main words which are key for me. It leads to the formation of an inclusive and innovative research society. So inclusivity and innovation are key promoters for every one of us to be working towards open science and open society. As you can see, the benefits of open science are for all stakeholders, be it researchers, funders, organizations, governments, and the general public, who sometimes as researchers we forget about them. So we should do things that they care about, that is of value to them. And it might be something local, it might be something of interest to our population, to our community. So we should always have in mind that our research should be of an impact and should be of a value. Who are the enablers and actors for open science? In fact, every one of us. Every one of us from his own role can be an enabler of open science and open society. So definitely libraries and librarians are one of these major enablers. So stop talking about theories and let's see some examples about how we at EUB, as libraries and librarians, are trying to enable open science initiatives. The first example that I'll try to share with you is digitization. So we have a lot of rare and unique items which we are lucky to host at our libraries, but to be able to disseminate information more openly and to promote knowledge, we are hosting a lot of digitization initiatives for a lot of different material, be it manuscripts, photo collections, vertical files, and others. And the nice thing is that this is not only available for EUB community, but any one of you will be able to look and make use of this sometimes rare and unique information. So we try to preserve all this heritage and we try to restore these unique items, and I'll show just a couple of very short examples, but we do have a lot of initiatives. One of them is Arabic Collections Online Project, and the aim is to digitize, preserve, and provide free open access. That's open society, that's open science, to a wide variety of Arabic language books in different subjects. In addition to EUB libraries, there are many collaborators and contributing partners from the region and outside, like New York University, Columbia, Cornell, Princeton, AUC in Egypt, and others. Another example is all the archival and annual reports of Al Asfour, which is the main Lebanese official hospital for the insane. We're lucky to host all the annual reports dating from 1898 till 1978, and all these are digitized and free open access to anyone. Another example is Kitab al-Qanun fi al-Tibb Ibn Sina, which dates back to 1593. And we also have it as physical, and we digitize it, and it's provided in both languages, English and Arabic. One of the most recent initiatives that we're working on is all the archive of the Lebanese Medical Journal. That's the main official journal, which is provided by the Lebanese Order of Physicians. I was contacted by them 2 years ago that they don't have the archive, unfortunately. Luckily at EUB, we've preserved all this archive from 1948 up till now. So we've worked on digitizing all this archive and provided it online for free for anyone to be able to access all these articles in the Lebanese Medical Journal. There are many more examples, but I don't have time to share about that. I'll talk about another initiative where we try to contribute to open science, which are doing exhibits also for the public, for open communities. One of these examples and exhibits, which I do really like, stories of women from the archives. And we found a lot of several unique items in our collection, including a letter by the famous Mezyede supporting EUB's co-education between males and females. So this was like 100 years ago. We found the first EUB thesis on Muslim women by an Indian student dating back to 1909. And in addition to a lot of other manuscripts and rare items, and in addition to the exhibit, we're trying to digitize all these items so that they are freely accessible and open to anyone. We cannot talk about open science, about open society, without talking about management of research data. So sometimes researchers worry a lot about publishing their research, and what's published is what's needed, but we forget about the original data that can be reused, that can be created for collaboration, that we can avoid duplication. So even funders are requiring these research data management plans nowadays. So in the library, we try to help researchers in all the life cycle of data, be it in creation, in acquiring data, whether from other institutions in Lebanon or in the region, in processing data, analyzing, publishing, archiving, and even reusing. We provide a lot of library sessions and workshops on data literacy, on data ethics, data sharing, data visualization, data privacy, and also we provide consultations for researchers on how to do and how to write data management plans and use data management plan tool, which is required by funders. And one of the things which I want to share with you, it's a scoop, that NIH in January 2023 will institute a new data management and sharing policy. So now anyone who's planning to provide a proposal for funding by NIH is required to describe how they will manage and share their data. But researchers are not equipped with the right skills to know how to do that. They haven't been trained. So it's the role of the libraries and librarians to provide this training and resources, because the NIH believes they should make their research more transparent, more reproducible, and more reusable. I'd also like to draw your attention to our institutional repository that we are working on it, and it's called the EUB Scholar Works. We try in this collection to collect, preserve, and distribute our material which is produced by the EUB community. So this increases the visibility of our research output. Definitely we face a lot of troubles, not to mention maybe some of them are common with other countries and some are special for Lebanon with what we're passing through. But luckily we're moving forward with this project, and part of this repository is an EUB data bank. So we have a bank for data. We try to preserve data and provide a stable environment complying with the open access funders' requirements. These have the advantage for preservation, visibility, and control. Definitely open access is one of the main pillars when talking about open science. So at the library, we try to advocate for open science to increase the awareness for researchers, why it's important to go for open access journals, why it's important to publish in open access. We try to set agreements with publishers for discounts for APCs. We try to make open access publishing a norm nowadays, and to increase the percentage of our research output in open access. So that's just one example of an article that we just published recently, working with some colleagues in the COVID. We published it. We always try to to go for open access journals. Open educational resources. So this is needed everywhere. What about Lebanon and the economic crisis that we are passing through? So what we did is that we formed a task force at EUB, having faculty members, having administrators, students, and librarians to provide these material, which does not only provide no-cost access, this is not open access, but use, adaptation, and redistribution with no or limited restrictions. So that's what we are, hopefully, next time, will be able to provide more positive news about how our work is moving forward in OERs. Another important example that I would like to share is some websites and guides that we try to work on. That's just one example of a resource center about COVID that I started working on back in March 2020. And making use of my background in biology and now my position as library, I tried to make use of both. And I wanted to provide information for everyone. AUB, healthcare professional, non-AUB, in anywhere in the world for free. So be it a health consumer or a healthcare professional, even there are sign language videos. So you're more than welcome to visit it, to make use of it. And this is still updated daily. So COVID is still there, unfortunately. You can see that luckily it has gained till now more than 17,000 views, and it's still being used. This is a slide of mixed emotions where we see that this guide with no marketing strategies have been shared and used by people all over the world, but unfortunately just by 2 or 3 countries in the Arab region. So the same applies for organizations that have shared and used this guide. Another one which I tried to work on is e-learning tools, because e-learning became a necessity, became a reality, and most of us were not prepared, and were not prepared whether with skills or with resources. So I tried to compile all major resources in this website, where it has gained around 4,000 views till now. I try also through my work in different organizations where the names themselves can tell you that we're open. In Healthcare Information for All, in IFLA International Federation, Arab World Association of Young Scientists, and INGZA, we try to work on projects to provide information for everyone, be it in health, be it in other SDGs, be it in collaborating and connecting scientists together from the Arab world and from outside. So I'm talking very briefly about that, but every one of them is a lot of major projects are going. I just want to leave you with one slide of some key messages. The main thing is to advocate and engage, each one from his own position. And I believe nothing can be achieved if we don't change our mindset. It's all about the mindset. We need to be open, and we need to make open science a sustainable global reality, and to believe that information is the right for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zein. I think we have time for one question.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. I just want to have one question, which is, what are the tools and the methods that you are using to promote the scholars to publish in open access?
The AUB Scholar Works, the institutional repository.
Yes, I mean, if you just highlight some of the methods and the tools that you are using to promote publishing in the open access.
Publishing open access, not .org scholarworks. Okay, so as I said, we try to do a lot of workshops, we try to do a lot of seminars. For increasing, first, sometimes you need to increase the awareness to advocate for open access, because some people, unfortunately, as I said, they care just to publish, regardless of where this publication would go and who it would benefit. So we try first to increase awareness all the way from graduates. So we start even with graduate students, with masters, with PhDs, who might be maybe more open for new initiatives and new ideas. So we try with seminars, we try to make use of a lot of events, whether Open Education Week, Open Access events, Open Access Week. So we try to host a lot of workshops. We try to provide support in selecting open access journals and still in high quartiles, in very advanced journals. And we try also with setting agreements with publishers to get some discounts for publishing in open access, so that this can also facilitate and encourage researchers to publish more in open access journals.
Thank you, Dr. Zein.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one comment before we move to the next one. Dr. Zein indicated that there's a lot of data available and there's not a lot of access, so I encourage you all to see her afterwards to see how we can get more access. Thank you. The next topic is very, I would say, on similar lines. It's going to be by Ms. Maha Abbas, the head of the Bibliotheca Alexandrina. Did I say it right?
Bibliotheca Information for Africa, a particular service. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Asfour for this opportunity and for inviting me. We'll talk today about the new trends in libraries and their vital role in supporting open data practices, the vision of Bibliotheca Alexandrina. Well, let's start by this quote by Donna Cheddar, IFLA president from 2015 to 2017. There is no truly sustainable development without access to information, and no meaningful, inclusive access to information without libraries. Well, Dr. Ola has started by saying that inclusivity and innovation are really two key words that are very important now regarding access to information. Actually, regarding the library missions, libraries are actively involved in the open data movement more and more. And we are trying to do this by several ways. Offering reference services or data literacy learning opportunities, making our own data publicly available, or collaborating with public agencies to build and maintain open data portals, and organizing events to raise awareness or drive engagement with open data sources. And we have to say that getting access to data remains a significant challenge, and we have been over the 2 days discussing this. Actually, many data sets are copyright protected, the fair use right could be limited by license, and actually we are facing many challenges that regarding the funding of open access initiatives, the support of article processing charged. In addition, we are facing the rapid erosion of funding for books and journals, staffing difficulties, and loss of the perception of the library as center of academic scholarship. The SDGs that all of us know well, actually libraries are advocating for SDGs. And I'm inviting you to check this, which is the library map of the world. This page is available on IFLA website, and there are many stories by different libraries over the world who are advocating for SDGs. And I've chosen this part particularly regarding Goal 4 about quality education. Libraries are at the heart of schools, universities, and colleges in every country around the world. Libraries support literacy programs and provide a safe space for learning for people of all ages. Libraries support researchers to reuse research and data to create new knowledge. And this is why we are getting more and more involved in open data movement, to be able to realize this mission. I invite you to check this website. website to read all these stories that are very inspiring about libraries. Actually, the IFLA have identified 5 key trends that will change our information environment. And this information environment is already reshaped by the fall of technological barriers, accelerated by increasing penetration of mobile devices in developing countries. And let's check these statistics. Actually, if the total population over the world is 7.98 billion, 66.9% are unique phone users, 63.1% are internet users, and 59% are active social media users. These percentages are not to be ignored. We have to take this into consideration. We have to take into consideration how technology is changing really our life. Well, these are the 5 new trends identified by IFLA. New technologies will both expand and limit who has access to information. And yes, it is expanding. We have this idea that we have access to lots and plenty of information, but sometimes it's totally the opposite, because this expanding have a cost. So when we have all information are available via technology, do we really have this access? Do we really can afford it? A question. Online education will democratize and disrupt global learning. Actually, online education is witnessing lots of changes. We have now the MOOCs, we have the e-learning platforms like Moodle. So the online education now is really changing, and it's becoming a very important trend. So when we talk about online education and the libraries, the physical place, we as librarians, we have to act. And we have to go with this new trend. The boundaries of privacy and data protection will be redefined. And this point is very important, because when we have everything online on the internet, we have to accept lots of things. We accept that they can profile us, that they can check our private data, so our privacy, the boundaries are redefined. Hyper-connected societies will listen to and empower new voices and groups. So this idea of being really connected is a very important opportunity, but also it has some threats. The global information economy will be transformed by new technology. These new trends have been identified by IFLA, so we librarians, we have to change this idea of the traditional form of libraries, of being just having the shelves, having the books on the shelf. We have to take into consideration all of this. And now I'll present a project of Bibliotheca Alexandrina, and actually Bibliotheca Alexandrina has a new goal set to connect those with common interests and expertise to hasten the development of knowledge and enable immediate sharing of knowledge and contribution. Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a very important library, a historical one and an international one in Alexandria. I look forward to receive all of you one day there. And we are really taking into consideration all of these trends. And BAIFA project is a project that is very advanced, that have as mission and goal to connect, to remove the borders between the African countries, provide African depending on their fields with opportunities to connect with each other, explore new ideas, experiment with new services, and learn from one another, and bringing them closer to their peers in different African countries. So it's a kind of network, it's a kind of digital library that provide, well, these are our goals: promoting research and enhancing the role of information services for African countries, establishing an innovative approach to professional development, and launching a platform for sharing experience among peers and experts. And I'm gonna show you the services that we are providing to realize these goals. We target librarians, researchers, and academics. Our services. First of all, we have a scholarly full-text electronic documents, a large collection of electronic resources available for free in different fields. This collection was a donation from Royal Tropical Institute in Netherlands, and they are still providing us with theses in the domains of public and international health. This collection includes around 10,000 documents available entirely online and downloadable through our website. Open access resources. We offer a wide range of open access databases, and these databases varies between journals, books and databases, references, statistics, and numeric databases. Online courses, actually Bibliotheca Alexandrina have a very important e-learning platform called BA Moodle. On this platform, we have online courses on information literacy, library professional development, and how to use different BA services. And we are enriching this platform in different ways, and this is how it looks. Resource sharing service. We are providing this service through African libraries to Africa researcher, and this service allows our users to request free articles from Library of Congress databases and book chapter from a collection called BA Sirajuddin Library that include collection of sources on statistics and research methods. All of these services are provided freely. And we have also a number of services provided by BAIFA in cooperation with recognized publishers. To start with Elsevier, actually we do have a number of accounts that give our users access to Science Direct and Scopus for free for the period of 6 months, as that can be renewed. Online training and workshops. We organize online training and workshops in cooperation with Elsevier, in cooperation with Emerald and EBSCO. And these courses aims at helping researchers boost their research skills, maximize their chances in getting their research published in reputable journals, promote the different services provided by these publishers through BAIFA. And this was the posters of our courses organized in cooperation with them. And finally, the e-article from EBSCO that allow researchers and librarians to request freely full-text articles from EBSCO, and they may browse their databases using our research engine, Discover at BE. To end my presentation, this is the poster of our upcoming event that will be held in Bibliotheca Alexandrina on the 20th, so the next Tuesday, about Future Belongs to Africa. And actually, Dr. Nazar yesterday talked about the education, the entrepreneurship and the enterprise education, which is very important now. So we are addressing the same topic. We would like to address this topic of bridging the gap between the higher education and the labor market, and if you have the chance, we would like to receive all of you. I've ended just on time. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. These are our contacts. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for the nice presentation. I guess it's not just a project by BAIFA, it's an initiative.
Yes.
So you have mentioned, I think in one of your slides, public health,
yes,
as an area. Is it limited to that, or is it really a wide range of areas, for researchers? This is one question. And the second one, you said also you had an MOU with Elsevier. I think
yes,
more will follow. And you mentioned that a select number of researchers
yes,
are allowed to access,
yes,
freely or at
yes,
no charge. What is the process for that?
The purpose of
selecting the researchers who will have access, to the resources.
Okay. Well, regarding the first question of public health, actually we receive each year from KIT Institute, the Royal Tropical Institute, which is a research institute based in Netherlands. It's a research institute, so they have each year students doing their postgraduate studies, and we receive their master thesis to be published on our website in different areas related to the public health. And KIT Institute is interested in Africa, so lots of these topics are related to health issues in Africa. So this is regarding the public health. Regarding Elsevier and the number of accounts, actually, upon our MOU, we have only 150 accounts. So we made some eligibility criteria, and upon these eligibility criteria, we are distributing these accounts. First of all, that the researcher, it should be a researcher, an academic, a postgraduate student. So we do not provide the service to librarian, for example. It's an individual, for individual usage. He should be a BAIFA member, so he should subscribe to our network. He should be affiliated to an institution, so we cannot provide this to a freelancer researcher. He should be based in an African country, so if he is an African researcher but based in another, in a country outside of Africa, we cannot provide him with this account, and he should be based in a country that doesn't have any access to Elsevier through any other way. And I'll give the example of Egypt. For example, we have the Egyptian Knowledge Bank, the EKB, which is a national project providing Egyptian and African Egyptian with access to different databases. So for Africa, researchers from Egypt, we do not provide the access to Elsevier, but we direct them to the EKB. And this is what we do in other countries. So if there is consortium, for example, we tell them, well, you have the access through this project. So we give it really to the country that are in need of this access and don't have any other way. That's it. I hope I've answered the question. Thank you very much.
I can see this is going to go on for running out of time, so if you have time at the end, come back. Thank you. Our next speaker is with us remotely, engineer Hicham Boutracheh. He's the head of the Moroccan Institute of Scientific and Technical Information, and he will tell us how the institute will be, how and why they commit to open science. Hicham, the floor is yours.
Hi, Dr. Yousif. I don't hear you very well. Please help me to share my screen. Is it okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so thanks, dear Yousif. Hi, everyone. I'm Hicham Boutracheh, head of IMIST, Moroccan Institute of Scientific and Technical Information. Let me just start my chronometer. So, very happy to be with you in this very important conference organized in collaboration with ASREN and the Egyptian Academy for Scientific Research and Technology. My thanks go in particular to Professor Yousif Torman and Mrs. Yasmin. Let's say first that IMIST is an entity of the National Center for Scientific and Technical Research, with a major R&D operator in Morocco. IMIST's purpose is to provide the Moroccan community with the scientific and technical information they need for their research activities. By acting with this framework, IMIST integrates to a large extent the spirit and objectives of open access. Concretely, IMIST.
Can you flip the screens?
Is there any problem with the... Is it any problem with the screen?
We're seeing the other screen. If you just go to display.
Okay.
This is fine.
So I said IMIST offers a complete system of platforms and services to support Moroccan researchers in the field of SCI. It provides contents and documentary services and valorize the national scientific heritage, such as theses, journals, and other research data. But today, I would like to share with you some practices that enhance our thinking on open science and its interest for the scientific community. In this exercise, I refer to bibliometric data for certain representative countries in order to consider two aspects: the international collaboration and the open access publications. So, we have in this table the Scopus publications of Arab countries during the period 2017-2021. In terms of volume, a very strong contention is observed with the supremacy of the prolific couple Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Let's say first that this type of exercise is not intended to respond hastily to questions that are known to be complex, but it has an interest to better specifying the questions to be asked. My only hope is today is that can help us to ask some other relevant questions. To move forward, I took a restricted set of Arab countries with two other entities to better appreciate certain parameters like volume and citation. This table crosses indicators of activity like publications, international collaboration in terms of percentage, visibility or impact, number of citations received by publication, and third, the field-weighted citation impact, which is an indicator showing the global impact of a corpus. To better read this table, let's use simpler graphs. This one, for example, shows a certain correlation between international collaboration here and the field-weighted citation impact, which is a weighted and normalized indicator allowing us to assess and compare the quality or visibility of a corpus. Saudi Arabia and Emirates seem to derive maximum benefits from their international collaboration. Tunisia and Algeria do not benefit as much. Let's have other data to better understand this graph. In the group of the first countries in terms of FWCI, there is a certain similarity materialized by the strong orientation toward the Anglo-Saxon and China cooperation. With the prolific couple, Saudi Arabia and Egypt, the relation between these two countries is an interesting case to be studied. This may be the first question that we can ask today. Disregarding volumes, Egypt shows a certain specificity. As we will see further, Egypt seems to be really positioning itself as a smooth transition between the Gulf model and the North African one, focused on Europe, in particular France. This role of Egypt can be a good issue to be analyzed as well. That's maybe the second question
Mr.
that we
Hicham,
can
سامعني؟
ask today.
السلايدز واقفين على سلايد نمبر 3. مش عم يمشوا.
Okay. Okay, I'll... Do you see the graph?
Yes.
So this is the graph I was describing in a few minutes ago. Here I'm in the Maghreb group. Because I shows the graph which is describing the correlation between the percentage of international collaboration and of the FWCI. In the Maghreb group, there is a certain similarity materialized by the strong orientation towards Europe, in particular France. And Saudi Arabia, in particular with Algeria and Tunisia. Morocco show more interest for the USA and conversely less cooperation with Saudi Arabia. One of the observations of these last two slides, is a potential driving role of Saudi Arabia in Arab scientific cooperation, both in the Gulf and North Africa model, which is also a very good question to address. That's maybe the third question we can ask today. For the third group, Iraq, which makes a high quality collaboration, as shown by the FWCI here, but the low percentage of collaboration means that the general performance does not benefit enough. Is there any trouble, any problem?
No, you have 2 minutes.
I don't hear you very well.
Go, please continue. You have 2 more minutes.
Is this okay now?
Yes, Hicham. Please continue, Hicham, but you only have 2 more minutes.
Okay. So this chart shows some correlation between percentage of open access and overall FWCI. What can we say? Still some special cases like Emirates, Iraq, Algeria and Tunisia. Iraq does not seem to benefit much from his involvement in open access. Emirates seems to be less affected by its relative decline in terms of open access. The FWCI below 1 of Algeria and Tunisia seems to be weakly determined by the modest commitments on open access. This graph shows us that in general, international collaboration and open access brings significant improvements in the overall impact and visibility. Again, international collaboration seems to contribute more to the impact, as is the case of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iraq, and Morocco. Otherwise, the improvements observed in Morocco and Iraq is accompanied by a lower openness to collaboration and, conversely, a greater appetite for open access. On the other hand, open access seems to have the most impacts of the United Arab Emirates and Tunisia. In this graph, the last one, the two normalized impact trend lines for global and open access impact shows the structural relationship of the impacts, global and open access, with the percentage of publication in open access. On the other hand, the effect of international collaboration seems to be more decisive, thinking in particular of the case of Iraq and vice versa of the Emirates. This leads us to think that these two aspects are determinants regarding the impacts. Of course, with others that we are not discussing today. They are probably decisive, but with greater relative importance for international collaboration. Several questions arise in addition to the others, to the previous others. For example, so what about the combined effects of these two aspects on the impact? We can hypothesize that the ideal scenario is to have a high level of international collaboration based on an open access publishing model. We can also think that initiating Arab collaboration programs whose deliverables will be published in a good Arab open access journals is also a very sweet idea. These ideas and others could help us to better understand, for example, why the European Union pushes its researchers towards this kind of virtuous scenarios. So, thank you very much, and excuse me for the technical issues.
Thank you, Hicham, and thank you for bearing with us with the technical issues. Unfortunately, we're running late, so we're going to move on to the next topic. The next topic is also a remote presenter, Ms. Batool Almarzouq, and she's the community lead of Open Science Community in Saudi Arabia. She will be talking to us about Open Science Community in Saudi Arabia. Ms. Batool.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you see my screen and hear my voice?
Yes, we can see your screen. Please go ahead.
Hello? Okay, that's good. So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm just going to keep my camera off to save bandwidth. I'm very, very conscious of time. The participants are very, very tired. This is the end of the day. I'll try to be very, very brief. So just a little bit about me. I wear different hats at the National Guard in Saudi Arabia. I'm also a research fellow at the University of Liverpool. I'm speaking right now from Liverpool, the UK. But today I'm given this talk wearing a different hat as a community lead and founder of the Open Science Community Saudi Arabia, which I'm going to speak about a little bit later. And outside academia, I'm involved with the NASA's Transform to Open Science initiative, which I just gave a talk about in Egypt a couple of months ago, where I met Dr. Yousif and Ustad Raed. I've been very, very active in global open source projects, including the Ladies, which is a global organization to promote gender diversity in the R community. If you're not familiar with R, this is an open source language which is used in data science and AI. Other example also Turing Way, which is a project in Batool, the UK's National Institution for AI, and we work closely actually with the Turing Way and open science community. So if you've got any question about how you get involved with these, just get in touch. You've heard a lot about open science in these couple of days. I just want to take you a step back and look at the deeper root of open science. Well, information is power. There was this desire to share that power with the community. You might have also heard about a crisis, reproducibility in science, which is across all disciplines. Many of the published research cannot be reproduced, and you can imagine what that means to science. We also know that the disability crisis does not only impact science, it also impacts the economy. This is an example of study showing that $1 billion goes to waste because of the reproducible crisis. Cancer studies, machine learning, also did not survive this crisis, which has countless implications in science and society. The way science works, we build in each other tools. If we can't, this is not science anymore. And we've seen this in the pandemic. So the question is investment in open science infrastructure worthwhile? Obviously, economic benefit by no means is the only motivation to adopt open science practices. But know that how economy can benefit also to achieve this knowledge-based economy is very, very important. For example, the UK Research and Innovation, the UK is the national funding agency investing in science and research in the UK. Much of the political justification for open research policy argue that it offers a significant economic benefit. Also, the European Commission did this benefit cost analysis, which they've seen that if they don't invest in open infrastructure for the FAIR principle, and I'm just speaking about FAIR principle, they lose more than they gain. They estimated that lose by 10 billion euro each year. Other countries also did the same. Australia, when their study shows that the benefit of economy is very, very huge, and their key argument for this investment in open science research comes from this economic benefit. So the question is how we can leverage this movement in Arabic-speaking countries. I wanted to echo what Joy just mentioned about the importance of contextualization when it comes to open science practices. You can't take it as it is, being adopted in the West or the global North and adopted again in the global South. You have to contextualize it. Also, a lot of people, at least when they speak about open science in Arabic-speaking countries, they're mostly talking about open access or repository, but open science is way, way beyond that. It's a way that involves the community through different practices, such as citizen science, open evaluation, open labs, open hardware. So the question is what we can do to address that. And what we did in Saudi Arabia, we created this community for practice. I'm conscious of time, so I want to elaborate what community of practice means. But Open Science Community Saudi Arabia is a bottom-up initiative, it's a grassroots initiative that discusses open science within and across discipline to make this open science knowledge more accessible, to facilitate that communication among scholars. We aim with the community to provide a place where newcomers and experienced individuals can interact, can inspire each other to embed open science practices and value in their workflow, and also provide feedbacks on infrastructure and support services. I'm going to speak about that later on, how we provide this kind of feedback. We leverage our connection with other global open science community to enable the networking between all the members. We are part of the International Network for Open Science and part also of their board. So our approach in the community is to focus on the data-driven innovation and other aspects within open science that are mostly overlooked. So we focus on open innovation, and open innovation is a way allow for many more ways to create value. We focus on open source. We help our members to be active contributors to global open source projects and also to create their own within Arabic-speaking country. We focus on verification. We look into the landscape of fair in Arabic-speaking country. We teach scientists how to generate DI, how to make their work or unpublished work also citable. We teach about open license, localization. Localization is taken and translated a step further, which I'm going to speak about later on. We also help other organizations to look into the landscape research software in the region. We do a lot in terms of capacity building and building these open education resources, which I'm going to share about in a bit. So we work closely with a huge community around the globe to utilize their resources. These include the Carpentry, which is a global organization that builds the global capacity in data and computational skills for conducting open and reproducible research. All their materials are licensed under CC BY, like my slides, which means anyone can reuse them, modify them with attribution. Many high-profile universities around the world partner with them to help them to build capacity within their institutions. Carpentry has this program to certify also instructors to teach their materials. We in the Open Science Community Saudi Arabia work with them not just to train our researchers or institutions, but also to certify new instructors so they can give back to the community. We also, when we established the community, we looked into the landscape, the FAIR principles in the region, what the challenges that we have. And we're very happy to see that Asfour is working with a lot of friends here to build this open infrastructure. I'm very, very conscious of time, so I'm just gonna mention briefly some of the challenges that we found. Some of the technical, so the current open infrastructure in many cases failed to support this right to local languages. you have to keep in mind that most, if not all of it, was just to support Latin script or left to right languages. The researcher can't really use this controlled vocabulary from data in Arabic because it's not supported. So try to ins and out, and you're going to see how it works out for you. There is also no DI registry agency in the many regions. There's legal aspect, which is concerned the sovereignty of the data, use of the open licenses, and the last one is cultural aspect. Even if you invested in policies and infrastructure, it's useless if researchers really find it very hard to adopt it. Something that we focus on is capacity building, and I'm going to elaborate a bit about it. Before that, I just want to mention or speak how we provide feedback to stakeholders in these type of issues. An example of the feedback that we provided is when we joined the working group for the open science in the UNESCO. I believe Dr. Nazar spoke about the recommendation. Something that followed the recommendation is the working group. We were not part of the recommendation. It was way before our establishment, but we are part of the working group. And Open Science Committee Saudi Arabia, we mainly provided feedback on the capacity building, which was incorporated in the UNESCO toolkit for building capacity for open science, especially in the section about localization. You can go back to it, and I can elaborate more about it later. In terms of the capacity building, as we mentioned, open science is really a huge umbrella that involves many practices, many principles, and it means different things to different communities for different disciplines, qualitative and quantitative. So we focused in our community in data science, in biomedical research, and localization. And I'm going to speak about our approach very briefly. We started by holding workshops and courses for researchers to help them make their research more reproducible. This includes how they can use open tools, version control. You don't need to know how to code, but you can use version control in many things. How to use R, how to generate DOI for your work, how to make your unpublished work citable, how to be agile, how to apply FAIR to your work. We teach them also how to use machine learning, AI, but using open science practices and using the FAIR principles. Example of tools they learn is Quartu, GitHub, how to make research Cambodia, how to share a research cycle rather than just the final result, how to increase visibility of their work. And the way we did it is by leveraging our experience in the carpentry. We collected volunteers who are certified carpentry instructor, made a program to certify new ones. We delivered workshops to researchers, to institutions, who in many cases come back to us, deliver more to their institution. All of this cost-free without any charges. The second thing that we focused in is localization, but probably many of you haven't come across localization, so what localization means. While translation means only translate the text, localization takes this a step further by employing multiple techniques to adopt the content, full meaning to a new culture. So it's something to do with contextualization, not just literal translation. And there is many systems which can help automate the localization process. They are called translation management system. I'm not going to elaborate more about them, conscious of the time, but an advantage of using these is to have a glossary, to keep a record of all the standardized, for all the terminology and their definition for throughout the project, because a lot of these vocabulary in open science actually does not exist in Arabic. So translation management system also leverages this translation memory, which you can utilize through multiple projects. And I'm really happy to see there's many talks about the importance of language within the conference today and yesterday. We also work with the Turing Way, the Open Life Science in the UK, with Boutracheh in the USA. They are all non-profit institutions. And why did we choose them? Because they explain open science without all jargons. They use illustrations, like the one that you see me use in my slide. So as someone who has no technical background can understand what open science means, to make that open science more accessible. We started, although we started translating Turing Way, the Open Life Science, to Arabic, the same way now is used to translate it to other languages, including Portuguese, Spanish. And if you got any question how to use them, free of charge, get in touch. We're always looking for people to collaborate with. Just the last thing that I want to mention is we care about sense of belonging. So we care about making the community safe and inclusive environment for individuals regardless of age, disability, expertise, race, religion. This is something that is inspired by our community, so we have a code of conduct. We make it clear that the community is open to individuals from outside Saudi Arabia and outside the Gulf. The name of the community is Open Science Community Saudi Arabia, which is misleading. We want to promote cross-boundary collaboration and networking. So the last thing that I'm going to mention, so what the community means to you, I want to emphasize that regardless of your country, of your institution, you can join the community free of charge. You can book training for yourself or institution. You can reuse the materials with attribution. Free of charge, you can promote the community. You can also apply for paid internship through Outreachy. So we partner with Outreachy to take undergrad ECRs and teach them about open science. And at the same time, they get paid from Outreachy, not from us. So this is something that's interesting to your institution, just get in touch. When members also join and start working in our community, they get the opportunity to reflect on that experience in talks, in workshops, in global conferences where they get invited to speak or contribute to them. This is just part of the organization, the conferences that our members had contributed by a talk or workshop. This include the Creative Commons Summit, the NICE's Transform to Open Science, the Einstein Foundation Berlin, the eLife, the Open Life Science. And I want to finish up by saying this is really urgently needed in Arabic-speaking country where the growth and local infrastructure affected by economic recession. Any change to adopt these open science practices can push toward more knowledge-based economy. Open science can do things that might not have happened otherwise, so we have to value what fair means, how to contextualize it, to value the diversity of the research output, like data, methods, software, public engagement. And there's a lot to learn from Latin America experience, from the Africa experience, as Joyce beautifully explained in her talk. And thank you so much. This is just some links for you and references. And sorry if I take over time.
Thank you so much, Batool. Thank you for a lot of exciting stuff going on. To keep on track, our next speaker is Dr. Emily. Sorry, can I speak?
Yeah, it's a difficult name.
The floor is yours.
I have slides somewhere. Well, we're waiting for the slides to turn up, and the clock is literally ticking, so I'm going to just carry on talking. Apologies if it's not caught up. Ah, perfect. Where am I pointing it? Here? That one. There we go. So I'm here to talk about the Forum for Open Research in MENA, or FORM. Now, what is FORM? We are a new non-profit membership organisation supporting the advancement of open science policies and practices in research communities and institutions across the Arab world. Now, FORM is currently an independent project of the Knowledge E Foundation, a community interest company which aims to improve the accessibility, availability, and inclusivity of education for everyone, everywhere. And the foundation activities include building schools, funding fellowships, and supporting open science initiatives. And in October, there we go. In October, we hosted a high-level strategy session here in Cairo to examine the state of open science implementation amongst research communities within this region. And during the session, 5 key challenges were identified. The first challenge was language, and this includes the lack of open science terms in the Arab language, the language barriers, which can make it difficult for Arab stakeholders to engage with global communities and resources, and occasionally, the lack of right-to-left functionality in open science digital solutions and infrastructures. The second challenge identified was awareness, including the lack of accessible Arabic language educational resources, the limited understanding of the benefits of open science amongst many regional stakeholders, and the need to address the mistrust and misapprehensions caused by predatory publishing practices. The third challenge concerned policies, both the negative impact, policies emphasizing university rankings, and the need for more robust national and institutional policies explicitly promoting open science activities and outputs. The fourth challenge was capacity, including both the need to develop essential capabilities in key stakeholder groups and the importance of ensuring adequate structural frameworks being put in place. And inevitably, the final challenge identified was funding. Now, during the strategy session, we've missed something. A number of solutions were proposed, but turns out I actually cleverly deleted that slide already, so that's fine. So hold on, I realize things are in the wrong order. So this we're skipping, but it's on the slides, you can come back to it later. The strategy session actually identified 6 strategic priorities for the next 3 years, which are aligned with UNESCO's broader open science recommendations, but also reflect the specific needs of the Arab region's research communities. Now, these were establishing open science terminologies in Arabic and demonstrating its value for key stakeholder demographics, encouraging cross-regional dialogue, knowledge sharing, and collaborative partnerships, developing supportive national institutional policies and incentivization strategies, ensuring necessary human and digital capacity needs are identified and developed, empowering stakeholders via the development of tools and resources suitable for the region. We've already mentioned it, Arab language content and right-to-left functionality. And most importantly of all, I think, building and maintaining the trust in open science and encouraging stakeholder engagement via incentivization strategies. Now, I apologize because my slides are slightly out of order here, so let's come back to this one. Because the Arab world has the resources and the capability to play a pivotal role in the global transition towards more accessible, sustainable, and inclusive research and education models. Our universities are highly competitive and, crucially, in the top of many ranking systems. Specifically, 3 are leading for many of the UN's Sustainable Development metrics, and 1 is ranked 4th overall globally. We're home to the world's largest digital library, freely available to all citizens here in Egypt. And in many Arab countries, almost a third of all research produced is in some form open access, and in some it's actually closer to 50%. However, while impressive, in many cases, these statistics are driven by isolated countries, isolated individuals and institutions. And more could and should be done, not only by individuals and institutions, but also collaboratively as a region. And this is what's inspired us to launch the Forum for Open Research in MENA. Our vision is simple. We want to help unlock research for and in the Arab world. And our mission is to support the advancement of open science practices in research libraries and universities across this region by facilitating the exchange of actionable insights and the development of practical policies. Now I know Dr. Yousif and Dr. Nazar are here before me, and they'll pick up on this. You might notice the disparity here between the name of the initiative as it stands and our stress on the Arab region. As I said, they've already given us our insights. However, we're waiting for when the new board to be elected to make the final decision on the name. If you don't really feel that's entirely our purview, we need senior managerial decisions for that. So our broad goals overall are to promote and support the evolution of open science ecosystems in higher education institutions and libraries across the Arab world, to generate accessible resources relating to the implementation of open science policies and practices, encourage and facilitate collaborative community partnerships, and champion the development of key infrastructures and right-to-left functionality. Our members will come from all the stakeholder groups involved with research at the institutional level in the Arab world, including funding groups and government ministries, libraries and universities, non-profit solutions providers, and of course the grassroots research communities themselves. We have 3 core pillars of activity. The first focuses on developing accessible resources for our stakeholder groups, which includes translating existing free resources into Arabic, creating new resources specifically addressing the needs and interests of our Arab stakeholders, hosting a new journal to publish and preserve the valuable insights and research presented during the annual forum, and perhaps most importantly for this conference, working with solutions providers to ensure that right-to-left functionality is created and universally applied to all digital solutions relating to open science activities. The second pillar is the annual forum, which will be held in a different Arab country each year. And the third pillar relates to our community development activities, which will take place throughout the year, including workshops and webinars from leading global experts, an online discussion forum, and working groups to address key projects and strategic problems. And just so you know, our first 3 working groups will focus on developing the specific open science terminologies in Arabic that haven't been done yet, and managing the global implementation and acceptance of these terms, developing monitoring and evaluation frameworks for our members, and championing right-to-left functionality. And to give a little more detail about some of our activities, in October we held the first annual forum, again here in Cairo, and it was a huge success. We had 50 speakers, over 1,000 delegates from 48 countries, and if you're interested, all the presentations are available on our website, so do go and watch them. Our next annual forum will be held in the UAE in October 2023. Details will be available on our website soon, and I do hope all of you will come and join us and contribute to the discussion. We also have a number of community development activities coming up. Some events are now finalised and some are in the planning stages. And in particular, I'm really delighted to announce that we'll have a 3-hour seminar and strategic planning session on scientific preprints in February, which is being organised by the International Science Council. Now, time is short, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but this slide gives a brief overview of our key strategic objectives for the next 3 years. Our focus at this stage is very much on development, on building the resources, the membership, the organisational structure, and the broader community. And crucially, all our activities directly support the priorities identified at the high-level strategy session in October and align with UNESCO's open science recommendations. But this is just the first stage of a much longer process, because as we all know, the transition towards accessible, inclusive and sustainable research ecosystems takes time. It requires deep-seated socio-cultural adjustments at every stakeholder level and requires a profound shift in political values and direction from the highest governmental levels. So therefore, we're adopting a 3-stage plan based on supporting rather than forcing change. Now, stage 1 is what I've already talked about here, building the supportive community of open science champions within Arab research communities and generating the requisite resources to build human and digital capacities at an institutional level. Stage 2 will involve working with the institutions themselves to facilitate real change, adjusting performance and assessment criteria to recognise and prioritise open science outputs and practices, and developing new structural frameworks to build human and digital capacities at that institutional level. And stage 3 involves those institution members advocating at a governmental level for the inclusion of open science considerations as part of their KPIs and assessment criteria. Now, I won't go into the tedious details about how the organisation will be managed and financed, but if you're interested, you can review our draft constitution here using the link or the QR code, and once the new board is elected, they'll be refining and ratifying that constitution. Now, as I mentioned before, at present, Form is an independent project of the Knowledge E Foundation, and the Foundation has actually committed to contributing $30,000 per year for the next 3 years to fund all our activities. After that, we'll have to find alternative sources of funding because membership is free. Now, we already have initial endorsement and support from organisations like the Qatar National Library and the Directory of Open Access Journals, and also the Arab Association of Universities, amongst various others. And almost 100 individuals and institutions have already registered their interest in becoming members. But, in addition, we're also looking for strategic partners and supporting organisations. Not for financial support, I hasten to add, we're not asking for anyone's money, but to give advice and work with us on events and projects. So I really do hope some of you, maybe all of you, would consider working with us in some capacity, whether as a member or a strategic partner involved with our events and projects, or even just as a supporting organisation endorsing our activities. Join us, and together we can work towards a more open Arab world. Thank you. I think I did it within the time, so that's good.
Thank you for taking the time. I think we have time for a 1-minute question. Yes, please.
The question is, how could you achieve sincere information about the real challenges that we face in our world?
Oh, the challenges that we addressed. So it was a high-level VIP strategy session. Obviously, it's not as comprehensive as we would like, not least because there was a rather severe flood in Cairo that evening, and quite a few of our delegates couldn't attend. But I think it gives a good working practice. There were a lot more challenges. It's very much, I think we ended up with about 29 came through during the discussion, but this was just a sort of aggregate over-level. So I think over time, the more members we have, the more opportunity we have for these strategy sessions and discussions, the more we can refine those challenges and really drill down into the specifics, both for key stakeholder demographics, because again, this was a sort of cohesive aggregation. So what would be good to have is to really be able to drill down and say key challenges for key countries, key challenges for key stakeholder groups, and then really work to refine our strategy to address all those little nuggets and pockets of problems.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our last but not least speaker is Dr. Tiamo Mochegwa. I hope I said it right. He's the incoming director at the African Open Science Platform at the University of Botswana, and he'll be talking to us about African Open Science Platform. So,
thank you very much, Chairman, and maybe just to start off by thanking Yousif Torman for inviting the African Open Science Platform to engage on this very, very important forum organized by ASREN. And again, to congratulate ASREN for convening all of us today to come and share on a diverse set of topics. Yousif was in Botswana in November, attending also the Ubuntu Net Alliance conference, NRENS, of which there was also a session on open science, the future of research. And I'm very, very excited to see this program peppered with talks on open science, because indeed this is a very, very critical area. We've just arrived from Cape Town at the World Science Forum for the whole week. The topic was science for social justice. And in there, the core pillar was really putting society at the core of all the science that we do, and thinking about how we engage with society, not only in framing problems, but in how they learn. So I think this is critical, especially on the issue of open access. Often we talk about open access to scientific literature in terms of exchange of information between peers. We forget that we should also propagate access to information about science to the general population. So really I was excited to see topics like open access in your program. Today, really what I wanted to share with you with this very limited time, I'm aware that this is the last topic that we are presenting on, is on African Open Science Platform. The very tantalizing prospect of developing a platform in the continent to allow us to build critical masses through shared capacities. We know that we've got fragmented capacities in the continent, but collectively, if we coagulate, we can actually have a critical mass in terms of sharing capacities. We also want to develop these efficiencies of scale. I mean, there have been some very, very interesting talks already today and yesterday on very, very good efforts happening in the Arab world in North Africa. How nice would it be that those very important lessons are also shared and propagated across the continent, if only for efficiency. So I think the issue of efficiency of scale, the issue of stimulating interactivity in the continent, I think these are critical. And also obviously amplifying impact through commonality of purpose. So it goes without saying that there is pockets of excellence, there is pockets of very good work happening in the continent, but we are not coordinated enough to be able to amplify impact through commonality. But at the end of the day, we also, I think one of the presenters talked about an open science ecosystem. We also want to make sure that Africa is configured in terms of research infrastructure, research ecosystems that are fit for purpose in terms of solving Africa's problems, but also allowing Africa to also engage in solving global problems. So I think the prospect of developing an African commons that will participate in a global commons is very, very critical. And I think some of the presentations already have touched upon this. So really this is what the African Open Science Platform is planning to do or should be doing. It is not to steal anybody's thunder, but to propagate, coordinate, and present a platform that allows us to collaborate, which I think is a very, very critical area. So I think those few remarks, I want to say I'm here to announce that the African Open Science Platform initiative is starting. The next stage I'll explain involves obviously making sure that all parts of this very large continent is advancing in open science. So it's really pleasing to see the good work being done in North Africa and in the Arab world in these areas. I'm not going to take too long with the background slide, but it's very pleasing also that Africa has got blueprints and strategies that look to advance all of us collectively through the prism of science, digital transformation, to address all the problems that we know about, that are multifaceted and linked, and they're cross-border and cannot be addressed by one region or by one government, but they need our collective efforts. And all this at the end of the day is about improving livelihoods, which is what I think our leaders want, which is why I think prospect of having a continental free trade agreement really captures where we ought to be doing. But at the end of the day, technology, science is an enabler that will allow us to progress. I think the issue of the platform that I just mentioned really is a platform for science diplomacy, making sure that we can collaborate technologically, scientifically across regions to make sure that we can tackle problems together. Often, science and technology diplomacy can also be described in terms of these research infrastructures that we need to build so that we can collaborate. I think somebody also mentioned this. We were recently in Brno, in Czech Republic, for the International Conference on Research Infrastructures. There was a very good declaration that emanated from that session that talked about how we need to invest in research infrastructures, how we need to collaborate on the research infrastructure that we have in terms of exchanging lessons, in terms of maximizing their use. Issues like climate change, for example, which is the topic of COP27, are key issues for the continent. But if you look at our research infrastructure in the continent that collects information about these phenomena, the data from the continent is very sparse. So how nice would it be for us to collaborate in terms of sharing these research infrastructures? So I mentioned that because I think in terms of open science diplomacy, the issue of underlying infrastructure that you share will be critical. And then, of course, the issue of open science has been eloquently presented on, but you see there the argument for having open science, the least of which is the efficiency argument. Very little resources that we have, let's make them go far. And then the issue of engaging society. Let's not live in ivory towers, but make sure that society is at the core of everything we do. The other presenter talked about open innovation, very, very strong argument also for open science in terms of open innovation. And it goes without saying there are very strong economic benefits if we do open science. But at the very core of open science is the very issue of integrity and quality of science. As scientists, we know that part of the scientific process involves peer review, including obviously culminating in sound publications. And then, of course, globally, there is a trajectory towards us in the world developing this global open science cloud. We just also recently convened in Leiden in Netherlands regarding the collaboration between different open science clouds. I think Sarah Jones presented on the very good progress that EOS is doing in Europe. Other regions of the world are also developing these open science platforms. And indeed, this is what we are trying to do in the continent, to make sure that all those efforts that you presented today in terms of progress in the Arab world, in North Africa, and I'm sure elsewhere in West Africa and East Africa and Southern Africa, we develop a platform that can also plug into the global dispensation and be organized as the continent. I think colleagues also mentioned the open science recommendations. I'm not going to belabor the point. Very, very good document that has been created through consultation with all member states. You'll see there the main pillars, the open science infrastructures that we know the NRENs will be very critical in supporting. And then the open scientific knowledge that colleagues have been talking about here. But critically, the issue of engaging societal actors, but even more critical for Africa, the opening up of dialogue with other knowledge ecosystems, knowledge systems such as indigenous knowledge. These are very, very good potential areas that open science can unlock. We know that Africa is a treasure trove of indigenous knowledge, so we must reflect on what open science means to us and how we're going to engage properly. And of course, UNESCO has developed some toolkits to provide us with guidance as we proceed to developing, especially the policies that we will need to be the scaffolding for everything that we do. And you know that countries are at the very beginning of all this. So we really need a platform to help perpetuate and exchange lessons that we know are learned elsewhere. And if we get this right, those are the areas of impact. And of course, there are also challenges. The issue of just changing the culture in our institutions of research to be that of openness. We know the tension between the individual accolades versus opening up what you are doing. The issue of human resources for open science, the issue of adequate infrastructures, and critical, the issue of these incentives to revise and reward scientists accordingly to perpetuate the best behaviors. And of course, there are unintended consequences as and when we do all these things. But these are key areas that all of us need to think about. And again, the role of governments is critical. I'm impressed to see what is happening in the Arab world in terms of what I've seen today. But I think we will agree that all our governments, including them juggling all the other competing interests, do need to look into the investments in science in general, including the enabling infrastructures. In the 21st century, doing science will require robust infrastructures so that we stem the brain drain of African scientists who are otherwise very capable, but they're going to other parts of the world to do their science there because we don't have the enabling infrastructure. The issue of investing in open science, the issue of making sure that our governments, by agreeing to the recommendations, do provide four-yearly reports on how they're doing. And of course, these are very, very critical elements we know that our governments can support. Chairman, just to quickly wrap up here, we have the African Open Science Platform that is hoping to perpetuate all this. And we are hoping that the conversation should then be, how do we provide capacity and capability in the continent to be able to do all these nice things? I'm very, very happy to say that there is a very strong value proposition that I talked about. There is also some good progress done already. And most importantly, Chairman, there is a call to establish nodes in different parts of the continent that Professor Madara mentioned. I encourage the Arab world and the Northern African region to look at proposing to have a node at that part of the world to make sure that we can progress adequately in open science. As a wrap-up, Chairman, we need to think about where these problems come from. I was very impressed with Professor Al-Makdi's presentation from Egyptian space agencies. This is a key area for us to work in the continent together on problems we can solve. The issue of biodiversity as well. I think Professor Juan Miguel Aranda made a very, very good presentation about diversity. These are key areas for Africa that we can have a common research agenda that we can all do through the area of open science. Genomics. Africa is a very genetically diverse continent. These are areas we can progress. So really, those are my 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair, for indulging me more than 5 minutes. I appreciate the opportunity. And the link to the call for the African Open Science Platform nodes is there. And of course, there is going to be a governing council that provides oversight in terms of the implementation of the strategy along the pillars that I've just mentioned. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I believe we might have 1 minute for a question, and then I'll hand it over to Yousif to wrap up. No questions? People are eager to go home. So, Yousif, thank you speakers, thank you panelists, thank you everyone.